that 78% reduction, is that just specifically where the Yscape is, or is that?
That's compared to as if it was a traditionally watered,
So that's-
efficiently watered lawn, not an inefficient watered lawn like most people do.
But it's square
With that
footage
same
to square
square
footage.
Square
Yeah.
footage to square footage,
So,
yes.
so when we have an expansion of this project slated, we'll do part of a piece this fall,
This spring.
this spring.
Yeah.
And then we're in our budgeting process, and so for next year, we're gonna expand and pick up, we hope to pick up that next section where the flag is at on the Washington side of City Hall. So we plan to continue to expand this, and the great thing is with collecting that data really helps us. We were able to show that this should be the default, and so now as we have conversations about the proposed police department, you know, those are conversations we're having right up front, is how do we do this? How do we make this more sustainable? So it was a really encouraging process for us to go through, and we actually published that report, and that's been used by several municipalities throughout the country and the world, actually. We've had folks in Canada, Mexico, Finland, who've all borrowed that report, because it's amazing how few people actually have numbers that do a nice side-by-side comparison of, here are the outputs, this is what it took. And so that was a really gratifying thing to see happen. Big one on the horizon, stormwater utility. Stormwater, the permitting for stormwater, so there's what's called the Phase 2 stormwater permit. And what that means is that our stormwater program comes under the umbrella of EPA regulation. This has been in place for decades and decades and decades throughout the country. And the EPA worked through different tiers. So they knocked off, you know, big cities and big industry first, and then they worked their way down, This has been on the docket for Moscow for a long time. It's one that they kind of struggled with because of the University of Idaho and how that interplay works. And then with more recently, the EPA's, the impact of the Trump administration with EPA staffing had an impact on the speed with which they could roll this stuff out. But the state of Idaho is currently pursuing, I guess it's already established now, primacy. And what that means is rather than reporting to the EPA, we report to the DEQ, and then the DEQ reports to the EPA. So our interactions with the state of Idaho, DEQ, and so that'll actually help move the process along. We anticipate a permit this October is when we anticipate being permitted. And what that means is that it really ramps up our maintenance of our storm system and the environmental monitoring of the storm system. So we'll be doing quality monitoring of the water that flows into Hog Creek, Paradise Creek, and we have a few outfalls to go to the South Fork of the Palouse River. And so from an environmental standpoint, it's a good thing. It's more work. It's more work that we're going to have to take on. It's likely that there will be a utility form. There has to be a funding source for the work we have to do. We have to have staff to go out and be routinely cleaning, inspecting, taking samples, all the work that's involved with the storm system. But from an ecological standpoint, it's the right thing to be doing. There's a lot of pollutants that potentially can enter the creek, and we need to be keeping an eye on those.
Could you mention a few of the pollutants?
Kyle,
What'd you say?
a few of the pollutants that we'll be monitoring for.
Yeah, we'll be bacteria, nutrients, sediment, things like that.
So, you know, some of the things that are common in like a storm system are heavy metals. Heavy metals will come off of cars, and then they'll end up making their way to the storm system. That's why our sweeping program is massively important. Which is the main reason that we have our trimming program. It's not a real popular program, but we have to be able to get those sweepers right up against the curb line in order to pick up the heavy metals that come off the road. And so it's critically important because that keeps, a lot of people just think we do it for aesthetics, but it's really so that we can keep those heavy metals that do because our sweeping program is a big part of not having the vehicles driving our roadways pollute our waterways. And so it's a big component of it.
And some aspects of pesticides and herbicides and the projects that are underway.
Yeah, and we'll get into more of that. That's a great segue, Nancy. So I'm not going to get...
Elaborate for questions.
Yeah, I got to get to this. So the last two things I'm going to hit really quick so I have room for questions. I know we're getting closer, but I'm excited because it's all fun stuff. The Environmental Stewardship Award. We've been working on this for 2 years. We're really stoked. This is an award that we have that will be available to businesses in the city of Moscow, where we have a series of criteria. We've worked with LSI and with Avista. LSI are the sanitation company. They do the trash collection and recycling. To come up with a series of criteria, and there are categories, and a business, if they meet certain categories, a percentage of the categories a percentage of the criteria in each category, then they are eligible for this award. And we've been working with, we had a steering group with a bunch of local business owners, and they're all really excited. And so it helps us have them display sustainability in their place of work. And so, I mean, it's even things like plastic use and make sure that they're conserving water in the FOG program, electric conservation. So do they have low flow fixtures in their restaurant? Do they have a good fog mitigation program? Do they have LED lighting? All of these things that are going to be components of this. And so we're really excited to roll that out. It'll
Define fog.
fats, oils, and grease. It's when the fats, oils, and grease make it into our sewer system. They're hugely problematic. We actually had a backup yesterday or the day before that 4 apartments got completely backed up with sewer into them, and it was because of fats, oils, and grease put down the drain. And people may have heard of the fat berg in London that that they'll get every once in a while. It gums everything up, and it's expensive. All of us end up paying for it because if it makes it to the reuse facility, it gums everything up. If it stays in the pipes, it backs everything up. It's a problematic thing. So anyway, that's another way that we feel like it'll be a really good program to help define Moscow. When people visit Moscow and they walk in and they see a plaque with a city logo that says Environmental Stewardship Award for this place, it'll start that conversation, make people realize that that's the kind of community we are, is that we care about those things. And that's something that Kyle and his staff have been working a lot on. So you can get more information on this. We're actually taking it to city council committees on Monday, and then we go to the full city council, and we'll be doing a big rollout Earth Week to try and promote this. So now, the segue of Nancy's. One of the things we really try to focus on is our chemical use. Chemical use is something that we really look at. On the public works side, our chemical use is primarily the right-of-way, in the rights-of-way. The rights-of-way, we have, weeds are problematic when they grow up in cracks along the curb line. They can cause us lots of, it can break up our infrastructure, cause premature degradation. So we have to get rid of them, and traditionally that's been through chemical application of weeds. We hire a contractor, they drive around all the city streets and they spray weeds. And we had a no spray list where people could say, look, I'll agree to maintain the weeds in front of my place. I don't want the spray. A lot of people we had to do that had an organic farm in proximity to the roadway, and they didn't want that happening. So this is one of the benefits. Nancy touched on education. Education just being a huge component that makes us able to do what we do. I was at a conference in August where a gentleman from Finland, from Helsinki, was talking about their bike lanes. And his presentation was about snow maintenance of bike facilities during the winter. And Helsinki gets pretty significant winters, and how they kept their bike lanes open as much as possible. But he touched on a chemical-free program that they had. He just mentioned in passing. He said, we've got our hot water weed control that we use, and it works really well on these pathways. Hot water weed control? I've never even heard of this. How have I never heard of this? Got talking to him, got in touch with some folks in Canada, and realized that they developed some technology to have a hot water weed control system where basically it uses hypersaturated steam that's heated to 300 plus degrees, and the heat from that will explode the cell wall of the plant. And it works as effectively or more effectively than chemicals. And so this is one of those instances where we had to really do our homework, because if we're going to shift, we couldn't go spend the money on this equipment and then have it not work. We don't have that kind of padding to take those chances. And so we did a lot of homework. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of other municipalities that we could talk to. I think we're one of 2 municipalities west of the Mississippi that's doing this. I don't know if there are any east of the Mississippi. I just know the only one they could bring up was Salt Lake City had bought a unit last year. The University of Colorado at Boulder has a unit that they've used for a couple years. And so we actually took delivery last Thursday, and had the training.
Monday.
Or Monday.
Yeah,
Oh, was it this week? Yeah, okay. Wow.
So now, does that work on noxious weeds where there's extensive weeds, or extensive root, like thistle?
So the feedback that we've gotten is that it works as well as the chemicals work on any of that stuff. And we're really just going to have to try it out in our climate. But what we've heard from, the University of Colorado is treating a lot of the same stuff we do, some of those deeper rooted ones. And it's tended to work really well. Where it won't work is this machine isn't something we can do like broad applications, so like a soccer field or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for that. It's for targeted applications, but it is something that we can use, for example.
It's non-discriminate.
No, it's not. It's getting them all.
Yeah.
We have been in talks with our Parks Department about potential expanded uses, like in our Y-scapes, and especially things like around playgrounds. It could definitely have the application where you get the weeds that come up through the cracks in the rubber material that they have on the playground, so that we could have that buffer area where kids are primarily congregating, and we can try and keep things more chemical free. And so we're working with the Parks Department to experiment a little bit on how we can expand that, but that's gonna be brand new this year. So for the first time this year, we will be chemical-free with our right-of-way spraying program, which we are really stoked about. That's a big one for us.
Can we do that at home? They got caught up boiling water in the cracks in the driveway.
Yes,
Does it work?
yes.
Good.
Boiling water is boiling water.
So here's just some images of the unit and then just some before and after. And that's a picture of the unit that we purchased that we have on hand now. And so with that, I'm sorry I took some time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Or try to.
And your seed sprayer uses it